Can oak trees actually help us fight climate change? That's what we're diving into today.
I gotta say, these sources you shared, really interesting stuff. I mean, trees are important, we know that, but wow, some of this research is amazing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of discussion around this whole thing. And these sources, they really bring up some really interesting points about oak trees in particular, about how they store carbon.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so to set the stage, right, let's do a super quick recap on why any of this matters. Greenhouse gases, we hear about them all the time, mainly carbon dioxide or CO2, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the big driver of climate change.
Right.
Now, natural processes, they've always kept those levels in check, but we've kind of messed things up a bit, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, think about it. We're pumping out way more CO2 than things like oceans and forests can actually absorb.
Yeah.
And that's where, trees, especially oaks, that's where they come in. It gets pretty interesting.
Especially with those mature oak trees, the ones in that Birmingham study.
I mean, they basically created like a future CO2 level.
Right, a controlled
environment.
They did, yeah. And the results were kind of mind-blowing. What they found was these mature oaks, some of them, over 150 years old, these trees were able to increase their photosynthesis by like 37%.
Wow.
Yeah, leading to a 10% increase in woody growth over just 7 years.
Okay, hold on. Back up a sec. For those of us who, maybe forgot high school biology,
Yeah.
can you break down why that 10% increase, why that's so important?
Sure. So it's all about where that growth is happening, that woody growth, right? That's long-term carbon storage. It's not like leaves. Leaves decompose, they break down pretty fast. And then all that carbon right back into the atmosphere. But the carbon locked up in the wood, that can stay there for, we're talking decades, even centuries.
So it's like these oaks are like carbon vaults or something, just sucking it out of the air, locking it away?
In a way, yeah.
Okay. But I'm guessing it can't be as easy as, more CO2, more trees, problem solved.
You're right. It's not that simple. CO2, it's essential for photosynthesis, absolutely. But trees, they need a whole bunch of stuff to really thrive. Think of it like a recipe.
Right.
You need all the ingredients.
Makes sense.
And the Australian study, the one with the eucalyptus trees, is a perfect example of this. They actually saw an even bigger jump in photosynthesis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 20%.
Wow.
But most of that extra energy, it went into growing leaves and roots, not the woody parts.
Interesting. So are eucalyptus trees just like wired differently?
It's not the trees themselves, it was the soil. See, the Australian site, it had lower levels of certain nutrients, especially phosphorus, and that limited how much of that extra CO2 the trees could actually turn into, that long-lasting wood.
Fascinating. So they were like hitting a ceiling almost because they didn't have those nutrients.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good reminder that we can't just, pump the atmosphere full of CO2 and expect trees to fix everything. It's not that straightforward. They need the right conditions. The whole ecosystem matters.
Right. Yeah. It's all connected. So thinking about what's being done now, right? We hear a lot about planting trees to, fight climate change. Is that enough? Is it that simple?
Well, it's definitely important. Planting trees, it's a good thing, but it's not a magic solution. You know what I mean? We have to be smart about it. Just planting trees anywhere without thinking about what kind of trees, where they're going, how to take care of them long term, it can backfire.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, like we were talking about before, different trees, they store different amounts of carbon. Like those oaks, the mature ones, they're really good at it. They can store a lot over their whole lifespan. Also, planting different kinds of trees together, not just one type, that makes a forest stronger, more resilient. If a disease hits, or pests, it's better to have a mix.
So it's like diversity is key. It's not just about numbers.
Exactly. And then there's where you plant them. Putting a tree somewhere it wouldn't normally grow, or where it might mess up the balance that's already there, that can actually do more harm than good.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the soil itself? Like we were talking about how those trees needed certain nutrients. Can we do anything about that?
That's a big question, yeah. Researchers are looking into stuff like that. There's something called biochar, for example. It's basically like charcoal that you add to the soil, helps improve the structure, makes it more fertile.
Oh, interesting.
And it can help store carbon, too.
So it's like giving the soil a boost so the trees can do their thing even better.
Yeah, exactly. It all ties together. Healthy soil, healthy trees, more carbon storage. It's a cycle, a good one, and we want to encourage that as much as possible.
This is all super interesting. But where does this leave us then? We've got these incredible trees, but there are limitations too, right?
Yeah.
Challenges. What's the takeaway?
It's complicated, no doubt. But there's hope, too. We need to start thinking bigger picture, Not just about planting trees, but about restoring entire ecosystems. Think about it. Forests are more than just trees, right? They're incredibly complex. From the tiniest little microbes in the soil, all the way up to the animals living there, every part matters.
So it's like we need a more holistic approach.
Exactly. And that's where we come in, all of us. What we do every day, it makes a difference.
Okay, so a more holistic approach. I like it. But what does that actually look like? What can we do besides, planting trees?
Well, I think it starts with realizing that all the choices we make, even the little ones, they all have an impact. Like, think about how much we rely on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Big one, right? So anything we can do to reduce that, supporting renewable energy, taking public transportation more often, even just, walking or biking when you can.
Right. Stuff we can all do.
Exactly.
But I don't know, sometimes it feels like what I do, it's just a drop in the bucket. Does it really even matter?
I hear that. But think about it this way. What if, everyone listening right now, what if they all decided to, say, cut down on their plastic use by just 10%? That adds up, right? That sends a message to businesses, to the people making decisions.
It's like putting your money where your mouth is. Or, well, not putting your money there if it's, not sustainable.
Exactly. It's about supporting the good stuff and holding ourselves accountable too, right?
Yeah, for feet.
Because at the end of the day, we're not separate from nature. We're part of it. And what we do affects everything. Those oak trees, they're adapting to the higher CO2, and we need to adapt too. We can change our behavior and create a better future. It's possible.
I like that. This has been great. Seriously, I've learned a lot. I mean, I always like trees, but now I see them totally differently. They're like superheroes or something.
Right. They're pretty incredible. And the more we learn about them, the more we realize we need them.
For sure. Any last thoughts for our listeners? Something to, to think about as they're like walking through the park or whatever.
Next time you see a tree, any tree, just take a minute, look at it, really appreciate it. Not just because it's pretty, but for everything it does for us, for this planet. Because we can be part of the solution, all of us. We just have to, do our part.
Well said. A huge thank you to you for breaking all this down for us.
Anytime.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time with a whole new topic to explore.